Hi, everyone. Welcome to a special one-on-one episode of Collaborwocky. I'm here today with Andrew Sanyal, who is a student at Modus Institute and is just has a ridiculously rich background. So you can do a better job of introducing yourself than I can, Andrew. So can you tell people why I would say that you're interesting?
Oh, I don't know about that. I guess the last 15, 16 years I've been around a bit. I've done all sorts of project and program stuff, but in a different environment than just software. So generally in a semiconductor background, so working on things which have really hard deadlines, but also involve lots of software folks. And yeah, I've been all sorts of places doing that. So yeah.
Okay. So to extend that a little bit in the world of systems thinking, there are many kinds of systems. Some of them are how we work together in the office, and others are subatomic. And it just so turns out that Andrew has like a breadth of systems, both visible and highly invisible, that he is aware of. And
Correct.
I personally find that when people touch multiple levels of system thinking, every level informs the other. So knowing like particle physics, for example, probably is probably helpful from you from time to time when you see people kind of wig out in a meeting. You're just like, oh, I get it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fortunate in that my long time ago background is I did a PhD in applied physics, which was in I'll never get this right, interferometry, which is the use of lasers to measure things. Actually, it was patients in radiotherapy and doing all sorts of things like real-time measurement of that as well. So that's from a UI all the way down to lasers and all the way back again. So yeah, that's awesome. My very long time ago background.
So the reason that we're here today is we were having a conversation on Modus Institute, and one of my goals kind of this year is to bring more of these conversations to light because they're so awesome. They're so interesting. And this is of a subject that kind of sounds over talked about, but it's the definition of done is what it's called in Agile. But it's something more human than that. It's the realization that you're not done. So Andrew, do you want to tell your own story before I talk over it?
Sure. I was working with my team who at the time were working on some quantum computing stuff. We were looking at how do you do research, fundamental research on quantum computing in a company, so not in a university environment, but in a company. And you want to then talk about that to the world. There are lots of steps along the way to go from an idea to something that you can share with the world. The team itself was made up of a blend of quantum scientists, a little bit of engineering skills, and actually the definition of done in that case was largely, well, the paper's written. So we've written the paper, we've gone through drafting, we've written the paper. So it's not software per se, right? Although there are elements of software involved. We were having this conversation and we would draw on the definition, we'd drawn the Kanban, we'd put up done, we put up the done state. And actually I had been reading your collaboration equation stuff before. So I was able to sit there and very calmly say, well, is that really done? Is that really done? And what it turned out was that in that case, it wasn't really done because, yeah, you've done the paper, but as an organization, as a company, you need to do a lot more than that to sell your idea. So you're blogging about the piece that's done. So now you need to start including the marketing side of things. So there's further states of done that we found had to be included, and actually including those in the thinking at the end meant that when we were looking at what to do meant, what doing meant, actually changed all of that as well. So we ended up changing earlier stages because we changed later stages as well.
And what I love about that is that there's a definition of done for a stage or a phase. Then there is a second definition of done for the next, and that as you're moving through that next, it could change how you feel about the doneness of your previous stage. So the work was legitimately done, but in future phases, that notion of done can change, and that's okay. So you did legitimately get done. You can go out for beers and celebrate, but you also, as scientists at least, would recognize that done is a transitory state. It's not a permanent state. So did the researchers and stuff, did that excite them, or did it depress them, or was it just another day at the office?
That's hard to say. I think the honest answer is that it very much excited the rest of the people in the sort of project program perspective, because it allowed more of the storytelling of what work meant and what it means to do things, and it also allowed the dependencies and risks to be not talked about in that way that we talk about dependencies and risks, but to be, okay, this is part of what we need to do. And that did excite people in who were doing the work, because they could then see, oh, okay, we've got to include this side of things to get, as you said, another state of done, another, another chance to celebrate. That was a real positive. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So it strikes me, so many years ago, I was having barbecue with Gene Kim in Nashville, and I made him dive for the phone by saying the sentence, DevOps isn't a role, it is a shared activity. And he immediately, grabbed his phone and tweeted that out when one could tweet. It strikes me that that's what you created there. Was you had kind of developed the paper, but putting into operations was when the paper actually met the public. When the paper met the public, it caused changes to the paper. Just like in true DevOps, not if you have a DevOps group, because that's not DevOps. But but if you're actually doing real DevOps, you're developing with an eye for operations. You're doing operations with an eye for development, and there's a lot of collaboration between the two. I love that. I'm going to share my screen really quickly to kind of show that no one is immune. Let's see, there it is. Share. There we go. Am I sharing a Kanban right now? There we go.
Yes.
So this is the current Kanban, if you will, for Mark Kilby and I for the finishing of our distributed teams class. And as you can see here, module 6 is almost done, and you can see that by the done stickies. Mark's working on these things, they're in progress, and these two things we have to get together and record. But when we get done with that, there's going to be a huge done here that says that the filming for the videos is done, and all of the videos for the course is done, and those things are done. But simply because those are done doesn't mean that there's more stuff to do. And so we actually have to socialize it and sell it and talk about it and make sure that the students are cared for and stuff. So these are the things that come after done. So we have this kind of creation phase here, and then we have a management phase. And I will bet you anything that new videos are going to appear back here in this space, or new materials are going to appear back there in that space because of what changed after implementation. And I feel like so often in all kinds of work, we become so focused on the product that we actually don't focus on the value to the customer. we'll talk about it a lot, but we always talk about it in the value of the product and not about the ongoing, management of selling it, blah, 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 blah. And then I've also seen development teams become very frustrated when sales or marketing comes back and asks, can you fix this bug? Or can you extend these features, or can you do this, or can you do that? Because they see that as extra work because people have already moved on to the next project.
Yeah, it's very much something that happens in the semiconductor world, because you're focused on getting the chip out the door as the release. And that's the big thing. And then once you've done that, your teams will separate off and go do another chip. But actually, if you're sat in a product management role, there's all that additional money to be made. There's all that money you've left on the table for ongoing support, ongoing feature development. You want to use it as a platform that you're able to drive more money from.
Yeah, and that what's interesting to me about that is that one of the traps. So I used to build freeways and subways, and so it's a little bit hard to go out and say, okay, this month we're gonna release I-405 1.4. Even though that's actually what literally happens. Like in Seattle, we have a roadway I-405 that's literally been under construction since it was built 35 years ago, or no, wait, 50 years ago now. And it's always been under construction in one part of it or another. So the operations on it always suck. Always. But most of the time you can't do that. So I should stop under my own argument. But with a chip, once you release it, it's got a physical form.
Correct.
It's a thing. It's in the box under my desk, and so it's a lot harder than software to just say oops and offer your every 15-minute update to your phone app. So when you define done for a chip, I would imagine that there's a much higher bar for the actual testing, field testing, beta, beyond beta-ing, et cetera, of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's much more like how to put it. It is much more. I'm going to use the word. It's much more like a waterfall approach. It's much more of a set of really big serial gates that you have to go through. And I think you just have to recognize that, and that those have quality thresholds. And you want to have those fundamental features in, but you need to find other ways to make money on the longer term as well. So
right, and this is a tension that I found quite often in companies that have, a full solution. So we worked with one company that did guidance systems for cement trucks. So there was firmware, there was hardware, there was software, there was comms, there were all of these different groups that were different. It's not like just like an average, Agile team that has a bunch of different teams inside of it that don't make any sense. Like these ones actually made functional sense, but that was even worse because they were so different. It was like they were different countries. And so getting those groups to work together in a fluid way, because none of them were using the same methodologies, and none of them had the same testing regimens. And if you slowed the software people down by having them do a CMM level 5 compliant, system, the whole thing would have broken down. But they were moving it. It's not that they were moving fast; it was that they were moving recklessly. And so how could you get their Agile systems to match the level of quality and rigor that were happening in the rest of the org? Not a popular statement, I know. Okay, well, so I swore when I started this that I wasn't going to go on forever, but these things obviously just fascinate me, and I can't stop talking about them. So thank you for joining me today, Andrew, and I look forward to our future conversations and collaborations, and thanks for being part of our Lean Agile Visual Management event this year.
Thank you very much, Jim.